Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second to last math lesson we have to contend with. We are talking math lesson 19, and today is all about dividing by decimal numbers. Last week we were dividing by whole numbers. Today, dividing by decimals. And over on page 780, you have another decimals chart, which the first problem today is going to say copy the decimal chart. So let's go and take a look. All these rules apply to all four of these. When you're dealing in decimals, you may need to place a decimal point at the end of any whole numbers and fill in empty places with a zero. So they have you draw this so you can kind of remember. That's why they say the memory cue. When you add or subtract decimal numbers, you line up at the decimal point. Always line it up and bring the decimal point straight down in the answer. When you are multiplying decimals, you multiply and then count. Count the total number of places you have behind the decimal point in the problem, right? Here is one decimal place. Here's another decimal place. So in the answer, you're going to move the decimal point over that many places. In this case, it was 2. Last Friday, we talked about dividing by whole numbers. If you were dividing by, say, the whole number 2, you would just bring the decimal point straight up in your answer. But here's what we're talking about today, dividing by decimal numbers, why they have the D there. And the memory cue is over, over, up. Because if you have a dividing problem where your divisor is a decimal, you first have to bring the decimal point to the end of it. If I jumped over one number here in the divisor, I have to jump over one number in the dividend as well. Over, over, and then straight up. Okay, and we'll talk about that more in detail here. So basically the rule is you can't divide by a decimal number. Move the decimal point in the divisor to the end of the number, then move the decimal in the dividend the same number of places to the right. What they mean by over, over, up. So here it is spelled out for you again. If I'm dividing by 4/10, I want to bring that decimal point to the end. So I would just be dividing by the whole number 4, right? You don't have to keep that 0 in the front of it anymore. I would bring the decimal point over the same number of places in the dividend and straight up. So when you go about dividing this then, you can treat this as 5 2/10 divided by 4. Now we're back to where we were on Friday, right? So let's try some examples here. First one up, pretty easy. 3 6/10 divided by 3/10. So over, over, and up. So the decimal point's going right on the end. I don't even know if I'm going to need them there or not. So now you're basically left with 36 divided by 3. Hopefully we know 36 divided by 3, hey, that's the whole number 12, right? Multiplies back and subtracts. I shouldn't have did 2 digits at once, but I'm hoping by the end of 5th grade, people know, right? So, do I want to leave the answer 12 point nothing? 12 and nothing? No, I'm just going to say plain old 12. Pretty easy. Let's try a few more. So here I have 1 2/10 divided into 2 4/10, otherwise known as 2 4/10 divided by 1 2/10. So over, over, and up. Now let's take a look. If I'm at the end of this number, this is basically going to end up being 24 divided by 12. Am I even going to need my decimal point in the answer? No, I'm not, because 12 divides into 24 two whole times. You would not say 2 and nothing. It's just plain old 2. Trying out this one, I have 125 thousandths divided by 5/10. Can't divide by a decimal number, so it's over, and up. So instead of 5/10, I want to think of this guy as this plain old 5, right? 5 divides into 12 two whole times. He's going to multiply back for 10. I'm going to left with 2 to subtract from, and then I'm going to bring down that 5, aren't I? So let's bring them on down and park them right next to our subtraction answer. 5 divides into 25 5 whole times, multiplies back for 25, and it's going to subtract for 0. So for the final answer this time, I do need my decimal point, right? I'm not going to erase them. It is 25 hundredths. So it probably wouldn't hurt to put a 0 right on top of that 1, right? That's how to write 25 hundredths. 30 and 45 hundredths divided by 1 and 5/10. Again, you can't divide by decimals, so let's bring them on over to the end. Over, and up. So instead of thinking of the divisor as 1 and 5/10, I want to just think of them as 15. 15 is going to divide into 30 two whole times. It's going to multiply back for an even 30, and I'll end up subtracting for 0, correct? So then I want to bring down my 4 and park them right next to my subtraction answer, and I'm going to end up with 4 divided by 15. Does 15 fit in a 4? Hopefully you know, we've been practicing this a long time. It goes in there 0 times, correct? Subtracts back for 0. Multiplies back for 0, excuse me, and it subtracts for 4. So now I'm going to bring down my final digit, which is that 5. 15 into 45. Hopefully you know it's going to be 3. Multiplies back for 45, and it's going to subtract for 0. So my final answer I ended up with 20 and 3/10. So this part is just a review. Remember, when you're dividing by ones and zeros, multiples of 10, the number you want to make smaller. So to make a number smaller, I'm going to be moving the decimal point to the left. I count how many zeros there are. I have 2 zeros, so let's move this decimal point over 2 to the left. Uh-oh, I don't have another number, right? So I draw in a 0 because nothing is the same as 0. I can park my decimal point right in front there. Let's put in a 0 in the 1 spot because that's how you write decimal numbers. And I end up with 0.078, otherwise known as 78 thousandths. Say the name of the number, then the name of the group, right? Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So if the first one was dividing and you make the number smaller, when you multiply, you want to make the numbers larger, right? And to make the numbers larger, you got to move the decimal point to the right. Count how many zeros. This only works with multiples of 10. So I'm going to move the decimal point 3 places to the right. So 1 place, 2 places. Uh-oh, I don't have a third number, so 0 is the same as nothing. And this falls right at the end of the number. So you're going to say 340 and nothing, or would you just say plain old 340? When you multiply, the numbers have to get larger. So 340 is a whole lot larger than 34 hundredths, right? $340 is way more than 34 cents. So our last one before we go into the Socrative quiz. Here I have 32 4/10 divided by 1,000, right? So remember, when I divide, my numbers are getting smaller. So I want to move the decimal point over the same number of zeros. If I'm dividing by 1,000, I better move that decimal point over 3 places to the left. 1, 2, I don't have a digit there, I just have nothing, so I better write in the digit that means nothing, the 0, and 3. So I end up with 324 10,000ths, right? Write in your 0 in the ones place. 0, decimal, 0, 324. Say the name of the number, then the name of the group. 324 is 324. The name of the group is the 10,000ths place. 324 10,000ths. All right, second to last time I'm going to say this. Piece of paper and a pencil for the Socrative quiz.